Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Dark Sage Walker, and it looks like we're doing piano again. First time it was by choice. This time it was because of the roll. So who knows what's going to happen third time around. Alright, so I think for today's build, I'm going to put together something kind of generalized so I can explain a little bit of my thought process when it comes to picking arcanas for a build. And right now, because I'm going generalist, I want to... Now, this is not going to be an all-encompassing description of things, because I would like to go over a much more detailed description of the sorts of things that I look for in an arcana, and depending on what I want to do with the concept. But the ways that I typically look at spells is I tend to look at them... Yes, buddy. Why are you flying over my head? I mean, I guess I expect you to be over my head, but why are you like a couple inches over my head is what I'm getting at. What are you doing, pal? What are you getting at? Sorry, I was being bird bombed. So, I tend to divide my arcana in a couple of different directions. Either they're good for combat use, they're good for support, or they're good for defense. And as a means of kind of getting you to understand, combat means that the spell is used almost strictly for damage. And that's where spells like Exploding Fireball are kind of are separated out, because that is a spell that is pretty much designed for damage and not much else. It's got strong knockback, but Now, that having been said, some spells are designed for combat that do a little bit more than just damage. Like, they'll do damage in lesser amounts, but in multiple increments. Those are spells that I tend to think are good for combo builds or critical hit builds. Support spells are things that just kind of help you along your way, or build you up in some way. Like, I would consider the wards as support spells, or like, I would definitely consider Fueled Berserk a support spell, to give you an idea. And then there's defensive support, which a spell that's good for defense is one that makes it so that it's harder for the enemy to do damage to you. Now, this will be things like, obviously, if I scroll back here, Evading Zephyr is a very good defensive spell, but so is Vortex Veil. And most jump arcana at least have a defensive use, so those kind of have a defensive tip to them as well. Permafrost Bulwark is a defensive spell, albeit kind of a shit one. Quantum Edge I would consider to be like a support. I like that spell quite a bit, by the way. It does an awful lot. It's just a fun spell. So what I'm looking to build today is something that's very generalized. Like, I want something that has a use for different occasions. So let's look at our dash. What do I want to use? Now, Dash Arcana are a tricky lot because they're all designed to have an effect as you're just moving around. Like, that is more of a kind of supportive kind of defensive, like, barrier sort of thing. But as you can see from the long amount of time it takes to get your cooldown back on that one, it's not something that can do it very often. Shock Line I would definitely consider to be more defensive. It's a very practical spell to keep enemies off your back, and that's pretty much what it's used for. It doesn't last very long, though, and that's kind of my issue with it. Volt Tracer is a lot of fun, and I don't use it as much as I probably should, but... The idea behind this one is that it's got a lot of general use. You can use it to try to punish enemies trying to chase you with the after image, but to me, it's got more of an aggressive bend to it. So this is what I would call more of a combo piece. And you know what? I am okay with that. But is that what I want to use now? Because typically I like to use Thunderline because it's got a nice area of effect. It drops the lightning bolt pretty much directly where you start from, so basically it drops it behind you. It can do a lot, and you don't have to commit very much thought to it. That's kind of why I like Thunderline. What do I consider it? I consider it a defensive spell. You can use it aggressively, but its primary use is just keeping enemies off your butt. So, let's now look for something that's... See, I'm looking for something kind of generalized, so what I want is I want to determine, am I going to be going mostly melee, mostly ranged, or am I going somewhere in the middle? Now, you guys know me well enough to know that I am definitely a ranged kind of guy. I like throwing things at my enemies and watching them go, "Ah, you bastard!" So, what can we use to play to that strength? And are we looking for things that are going to be doing mostly a lot of damage? Or are we looking for something to control the pack? Since I'm looking for something somewhere in the middle, you kind of have to ask yourself, what is the best payoff of hits of, like, look at hits to damage or like knockback and damage, whatever may have you. And in this case, I kind of like the idea of pushing enemies away from me with Ignition Drive. And since we're going that route, that means that we could combo that into something that has a good deal of range. Like, for example, we could go Cyclone Boomerang. Blurring Falconry has a lot of range, but not a lot of damage, so it's not going to benefit much from damage ups. And since our build could kind of go either direction, we should look for ranged attacks that could go either direction. Like Frost Scimitar or Aqua Breaker is actually a really good one. This is very much range, but as you can see by how much knockback it has, it also does a lot of control. That just leaves your basic, and as I've said previously, I think your basic is one of those things that should be one of the most important parts of your build, because you're going to be relying on that a lot. It's one of the only things that isn't going to have a cooldown to it. Matter of fact, it is the only thing that isn't going to have a cooldown to it. So you need to make sure that whatever you have is going to play to your strengths. Now, we could play this one of two ways. Either we go with something that has a little bit of range in and of itself, to play into the strengths of keeping enemies kind of off of our backs, or we could go with something that has a slightly different, closer ranged effect to try to cover up a weakness. And in my opinion, the best thing to do with that... Well, I'm not going to say best, but the thing that I like mostly doing is using Air Spinner to act as kind of like a 360-degree coverage. But for purposes of this build, we're going to go with Bolt Rail. Why? Because Bolt Rail does a good job of keeping enemies at bay. It scores multiple hits, and it should do fairly well whether we go with pure damage, like just damage ups, or if we focus more on critical hit, we should get something out of it. And now we're going to choose what kind of build we want. Well, not what kind of build, but what kind of relic we want to start with. Do we want to start with more damage, more critical hit? Our build can go either direction, so perhaps the best thing to do would be to pick a relic that either makes us more survivable or just makes it easier for us to get around. That's one of the things I really like about this game, is that your choices are very much not set in stone. There's all sorts of stuff that plays to all sorts of play styles. And that's why I love this game so much. I mean, you definitely find things as you're going through your run, like Binding of Isaac, but you're not beholden to those things. You at least have something to start with. And on that note, why don't we take a build that's... Let's see, what do we got? Got lightning, fire, water, a lot of multiple hits, but most of those hits also do decent amounts of damage. Why don't we set this up with the merchant's cart, as that will help us out as we pick up more relics, and as we pick up more relics, there's a good chance that we may find something that goes in a slightly different direction. So hopefully that helps some of you out in understanding my thought process when it comes to picking starting relics and Arcana. Now, I just wanted to give you a little primer of something that I'm working on, because I can go very much into more detail about that. I just don't think now is the best time for it. Now, because we have a very ranged build, I'm just going to start with Atlas, get him and his horrible Earth Knight mooks out of the way, so that we can hopefully focus on having more fun. Okay, that was completely awful. That was a terrible way to start a run. Alright, what do we got here? Ooh, we got a couple of things that I like. Okay, we're gonna take the Equestria Cap, because that's just improved movement speed will help a lot with positioning. And positioning is one of those things that's very important when you're running a ranged build, because the last thing you want is to be in enemies' faces. Now, that having been said, I do feel as though positioning would... Whereas I feel positioning is important for all builds, I think it's particularly important for builds that rely pretty heavily on melee, because you're going to be using that extra movement speed. Actually, no, I had it right the first time. The reason why I was going to say that positioning is important for melee builds is because you need to be able to dodge, but that's more of an argument for movement speed, not positioning. I do not want that. That's going to lower the damage of a bunch of my skills. Okay, I was out of charges for my dash. Yay. Alright, what do we got here? Why is it you never want to give me things that, I need in the moment? Okay, so here's the thing. I don't really want any of that, with the exception of maybe magnetic breakers, because it goes along with the thing that I'm trying to do, which is to keep enemies off my butt. But I think I'm going to grab the ancient fountain pen. Okay, I am just playing really poorly right now. This is kind of sad. I am going to ignore that. So now, do I take the magnetic breakers? It's iffy. I either take the breakers or I save some money for the next floor and hope to get something better. I think we take the breakers because those have a decent amount of knockback and will control enemies even further. And as we've noticed, we could use a little bit more control over the enemies. Hello. So many things here that are not bad, but also very... also very risky. What do we have up here that could be useful? Not much. Like, I suppose I could take the Phoenix Talon, but then it's not going to be very effective against Zeal. But then it'll be very effective against Shu, so you can see how I'm in a bit of a pickle, trying to decide how I want to do this. Also, if it looks like I'm playing like garbage, I kinda am. I just got home from work, got something to eat. And I would be lying if I said I wasn't just a little on the sleepy side. So I'm gonna try not to use that as too much of an excuse. I'm just pointing out that yes, I am a sleepy boy right now. Down the pit! It happens so rarely when I'm using the retro floor plan. I just get a giggle out of it every time. Okay, so we've got pretty... Well, we're not taking any... I'm not going to take anything wind-based right now. Because whereas it'll be good right now, it'll be pretty poopy against the next couple of enemies. Don't ask me why I said poopy instead of shitty. I actually am gonna grab the Phoenix Talon because that is a relic that's in a set. So I can add more relics on top of that to get not only greater effects, but... but also just add more relics onto my overall like my overall number of relics, which will hopefully make Merchant's card even better. And yes, we are going to come over here and earn a little bit of extra money by slaying a few more enemies. Ow. Alright, and we're leaving here with more health than we had. It's a win-win if you ask me. And no, I'm not going to grab a cursed relic. As much as Double Trouble and Double Toil like really give you a huge offensive edge, it also means that you take way more damage. Ah, nuts. I got up buttons. I mean, they're not great, but use them for now. What I would really like is something that hits multiple times over a long duration, so I can combo it with the Aqua Breakers. But that doesn't mean that we can't use it right away just to help out. And now you know why I love range builds, assuming that you didn't, already understand why. Can you guys go away now? I'd like to upgrade my bolt rail. Stop being jerks. Beautiful. Hey, look what we got. Now we're even faster. And you know what that means? We're even harder to control now. And I did see Pathfinder's knapsack. I am going to grab that. Oh, jeez. Lame. Oh, hello. Do we have anything good here? We do, and I'm going to take the Anchor of Burden. We are very fast, and the Anchor is going to give us more stun time and damage. I am very happy to take that. Now, you might be saying to yourself, why do you want something that hits continuously? Seems like you have plenty of control over the battlefield now. That may be true against normal enemies, but against bosses, I want something that can continually hit them while they're while they're stunned, so I can make better use of Aqua Breaker in a true combo. Now, the other thing I could do, I suppose, is use Aqua Breaker first. But I tend to use Aqua Breaker just in the middle of dodging, so that is why I'm kind of looking for something a little different. Okay, this isn't working. Okay, if you're wondering what exactly is going on here and where the trouble is coming from, it's the idea that there are multiple archers aiming down a bottleneck. Okay, that is a situation that I was having kind of a hard time getting out of. Okay, so Hunter's Stiletto is going to go nicely with that Phoenix Talon. And yes, sometimes you just have to throw an uncharged Aqua Breaker just to get things off your back. Like, never be afraid to throw an uncharged or partially charged charge spell. That's a lot of use of the word charge in one sentence. I hope that didn't get too confusing. Oops. Huzzah! Water Ball! Okay, that was terrible. That was because, again, it was a bottleneck, and the enemies had access to a defensive technique that was screwing me up. Alright, so we're going to want that. And I do like the idea of Tracer Barrage, so I am going to grab that. And that does mean that, yes, I'm putting myself very much in harm's way. It also means I can't afford the... Also means I can't afford the robe upgrade, and that's kind of an unfortunate scenario to be in. Oh well. I also would have liked to have picked up the tapping gloves. But I got a little sidetracked with Tracer Barrage, and well, here we are. Oh, the other problem that you were seeing with that room where with all the knights that were using Ignition Rush, the fire shield, I was trying to run past the enemies even though they were right there making life difficult for me. That is a move you should not be doing. You should be... that is something that is a situation where when you see that problem, you should just turn around and backtrack. You know, lead the enemies to you instead of trying to force your way through them. See, I know these things and I still make these stupid mistakes. You'd think I would know better, but hey, apparently life demands that I just have to be a dumbass. Ooh, hello, Jade's Jewel Tiara. That's definitely a high-end pick. Now, as I was saying earlier, this isn't going to be like an exhaustive like list or detailing about how I do things, because there's still plenty that goes into it. I just wanted to give you guys a nice start as to what I'm looking at doing. Oh, how did you get stuck up there? Like, how is that even possible? There we go. That's looking like a much brighter combat. I see two things here that I like. And have I seen any? So I think what's going to determine which one of those I take is if I find any. Ow. Ow, ow, ow. If I find any freebie relics is what I'm trying to say, but apparently wind archers are just the bane of my existence right now. I definitely grab that. Alright, how are we looking? I think we need to no, we don't need to double back. I need to use the portal like a smart person. Alright, and there's another example of what I meant. Don't try to break through the enemies just by running through them. You want to be maneuvering, you want to be kiting them backwards. And we're just going to do that just to power up the Ancient Fountain then. Alright, so now at this point, let's go here. Well, we're going to want that. And I can see 2 relics that I don't mind buying to sacrifice to the Mimic. Make that 4 relics. Although, do I want to hold on to this? That I might want to hold on to. But we will grab this and this to sacrifice to the Mimic. Everything else we want to keep, so we're just going to drop it. We can't drop those, but drop, 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 and there we go. There we go. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to do. Alright, just making sure I had everything I was supposed to have. Oh. Oh, holy monkey's uncle. Damn your airborne slam. Whew, okay. Those rooms with spikes in the corners are the rooms that are the bane of my existence when using the retro floor plan. Alright. So far, I think this run is being beautifully executed. But, as you well know, there's definitely room for improvement, like not going in and out of the same portal 3 times. No, I mean, yes, I do want to go back up there, but I'll take a portal back up there, thank you. So Obsidian Cascade isn't bad for this run, but we don't really need it now. Oh, pardon me. Oh, pardon me. I'm still getting over that, I guess. Yeah, that cough from when I had a cold is still there. It's annoying. We'll just donate this to Dr. Song. Okay, that's not great, but whatever. Oh, that damage is getting nice and juicy. Okay, Catalytic Tonic helped there. Maybe I should be a little bit less judgmental. Owie. I always find it funny that Shu is one of the more aggressive bosses. You know, considering the general perception around air practitioners, and especially when you think about what airbenders are supposed to do in the Avatar series, it just comes off as funny that he's super aggressive. But hey, everyone's allowed to use their element however they want. I can't really say that there's no such thing as an aggressive airbender. Ooh, fairies. Hang on. Ooh, and I have enough to adopt both of them. And for the inevitable person that says, well, why do you like the fairies so much? What type of build goes best with them? Every build goes best with them. And if you want to look at it from a pragmatic point of view, they're just extra damage. They're extra damage, they're extra status effects, they're the best little helpers you could possibly ask for. Now, even though their damage is relatively low, and sometimes the status effect they inflict isn't necessarily perfect for the situation, but you must also understand, I am a strong lover of sylvan creatures. I very much like fairies, and the only reason why I don't play fairies more often in D&D games when I get the chance to play is because, you know, having flight at a low level is very, very overpowering for a lot of DMs. It would just be one of those things where if I was allowed to play a fairy, I would have to promise not to break the game just by being able to fly, but I mean, you're also a very small creature, and you don't necessarily do a lot of physical damage, so I don't know. Would it be just for scouting? I don't know. I'm thinking out loud at this point, but guys, thank you very much for watching my video. I appreciate you coming and spending some of your free time with me. Like I said, there is very much a chance, and when I say chance, I mean I'm going to be doing it in the near future, that I will go into much more of an explanation as to how I build for different types of builds. So you've now got an idea as to what I think is kind of like appropriate to be using for, you know, for offense, for defense, for support. But now how does that all factor into a build? Well, that is what I'm going to be sharing with you next time I get back to this topic. And the way I look at it, in my opinion, I don't really count ranged and melee as they're subtypes of build. The main types of build are, in my opinion, are power, critical, and there was a third one, and now my brain isn't letting me remember what it was. This is the effect of coming home after a long day at work and trying to share information. Sometimes that information gets locked. And this isn't EA where you can just insert your credit card and unlock the information. I have to actually remember it, but yeah, typically builds fall under the category of power or critical based, and the types of spells and relics that you use for that are very much dependent on what it is you're aiming for. So I will be going over all of that, don't worry. I also have, tier lists in the works. Like, because I've been busy with work, it's been difficult to find time to do the recording for my Dash Arcana tier list, even though I've done all the Dash Arcana. But don't worry, I have not forgotten, I just haven't had a lot of time. But I'm rambling a bit too much at this point. You guys have been staring at the victory screen for a little while. But I just, again, I want to say thank you for coming and sharing your free time with me. I hope you have a fantastic day or night wherever you may happen to be, and I will catch you in the next one. My name is Dark Sage Walker, and take care, everybody.